You didn't lose because you were weak. You lost because you talked too much. Think about the last time someone got close to you fast. They asked questions. They listened well. They seemed genuinely interested in your life, your goals, your problems, who you were dealing with. And it felt good. It felt like connection. So you opened up. A little at first, then more, then everything. And somewhere down the line, that same person used exactly what you told them to hurt you, block you, or get ahead of you. That's not bad luck. That's a pattern. And it's been running on you longer than you know. Most men never catch this because it doesn't feel like an attack when it's happening. It feels like friendship. It feels like someone finally gets you. That's the point. Is the people who are best at extracting information from you are also the best at making you feel safe while they do it. You don't see the hand in your pocket because they're smiling at your face. There's a specific move being run on you. It has a name. It's called gradual extraction. It works like this. They don't ask for everything at once. That would trigger your guard. Instead, they start small. Low-risk questions, easy topics, things you'd tell anyone. Where are you from? What do you do? What kind of music you like? Nothing alarming. Nothing that makes you pause. But here's what's actually happening beneath the surface. Every answer you give is being filed, not just for what it says, but for what it reveals about you, your priorities, your vulnerabilities, your blind spots. And slowly, question by question, as conversation by conversation, they're building a complete map of who you are. By the time they ask something deeper, your plans, your fears, who you trust, you're already comfortable. You've already been rewarded for sharing. Your guard is completely down. You hand it over without thinking twice. Stop. Understand what just happened there. You didn't give them a secret. You gave them a weapon with a delayed trigger. Most men only realize this after it goes off. Now let's talk about the psychology behind why this works so well on almost everyone. There are two principles being used against you simultaneously. The first is reciprocity. When someone shares something with you, even something small, even something that costs them nothing, your brain registers as social debt. You feel the pull to match it, or to give something back, to even the exchange. They tell you something minor about their life. Now you feel like you should do the same. They act vulnerable for 30 seconds. Now you open up for 10 minutes. They gave you nothing real. You gave them everything real. That's reciprocity being used as a weapon, and it works because it's wired into you. You can't just turn it off. You have to understand it first. The second principle is liking. The more you like someone, the more you trust them. The more you trust them, the more you share. The more you share, the more you trust them. You see how that loop works. They make themselves likable, mirroring your energy, agreeing with your views, making you feel understood. And that feeling of being liked and understood lowers every wall you've built. And your brain says, this person is safe. But your brain doesn't know what their intentions are. It only knows how they make you feel. And feeling safe is not the same as being safe. This is where most people fail. They confuse comfort with trust. They confuse being listened to with being valued. Someone paying close attention to everything you say is not always a sign of connection. Sometimes it's reconnaissance. Think about the people in your life right now, the ones who seem to get close fast, who asked a lot of questions early, who always seemed curious about your plans, your moves, who you were around. Not accusation, just observation. Because now you're going to start noticing something you missed before. How much did you actually learn about them in return? When you tried to ask them something real, something deeper than surface level, did they answer directly? Or did they deflect, redirect, give you something vague, and then turn it back to you? If that's clicking right now, sit with it. Because the people who extract most and reveal least are almost never doing it by accident. Here's the part that actually stings. Once you share something with someone, your brain starts working against you. Psychologists call it cognitive consistency. Once you've opened up to someone, your mind wants to believe that was the right decision. So it looks for reasons to trust them more. It minimizes the red flags. It rationalizes the behavior. You already gave them your plans. Your brain doesn't want to believe that was a mistake, so you give them more and more until they have everything. And you have nothing left to protect. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how to break this pattern permanently. You'll know how to move through conversations without giving up leverage, how to seem engaged without revealing anything real, How to stay completely unreadable while everyone around you keeps showing you their hand. But before we get there, you need to understand one more thing about how deep this extraction goes, because it's not just your plans they're pulling out of you, it's your pressure points. Your plans were never the most dangerous thing you gave away. Your insecurities were. Anyone can compete with your goals, but the man who knows what you're afraid of, what you feel inadequate about, and where you've already been hurt, that man has something far more powerful than information. He has a remote control, and most of the time you handed it to him yourself. Here's how it happens. Early in a relationship, friendship, partnership, romantic, professional, there's a phase that feels like bonding. You start talking about real things, struggles, past failures, things that didn't work out, people who let you down. It feels like depth, like two people actually connecting beyond the surface, and sometimes it is, but sometimes it's a calibration session. They're not bonding with you, they're mapping you, finding out where the walls are thin, where the wounds are still open, where one sentence, delivered at the right moment, can completely destabilize you. Pay attention, because the extraction of insecurities doesn't always look like a direct question. It looks like casual conversation. They mention someone successful in your field, and watch how you respond. Do you get quiet? Do you over-explain? Do you get defensive? They bring up a past relationship, and watch your energy shift. Do you tighten up? Do you talk too fast? Do you reveal something you didn't mean to? They make a small comment about your appearance, your income, your lifestyle, and study your reaction. They're not just talking, they're testing. Every reaction you give is data. Every time you flinch, they mark the location. This is called pressure mapping, and the men who do it, consciously or not, are building a profile on you that you don't even know exists. They now know what makes you defensive, what makes you anxious, what makes you compete when you should stay silent, what makes you prove yourself when you should stay still. Oh, and once they have that map, they can use it whenever it serves them, not always in obvious ways. Sometimes just a carefully placed comment in a group setting, a subtle comparison, a small undermining remark disguised as a joke. You feel it land, you just can't explain why. That's not an accident. That's someone using coordinates you gave them. Now here's the layer most men completely miss. The extraction doesn't stop at your insecurities. They go after your network. Who you're close to, who you're in conflict with, who you trust, who you're building with. Again, it never sounds like interrogation. It sounds like interest. Who's that guy you always mention? Are you and him still cool? What does she think about what you're doing? Casual, conversational, easy to answer without thinking. But what they're building is a social map of your world. Who has influence over you? Who you'd protect? Who could be used as leverage? Who could be turned against you if things go sideways? They're not just learning about you, they're learning about your entire operation. Stop. Think about what that means in real terms. If someone wanted to slow you down, not attack you directly, but just create enough friction to keep you off balance, they already have everything they need. They can quietly poison a relationship, spread the right information to the right person, create doubt in someone you trust, pull a resource away at the wrong moment, and you'll feel it. But you won't see the origin point, because the origin point was that conversation 6 months ago that felt like nothing. And here's the psychological mechanism driving all of this. It's called the liking disclosure loop. The more someone likes you or makes you feel liked, the more you disclose. The more you disclose, the more they seem to understand you. The more they seem to understand you, the more you like them. Round and round, each cycle pulling more out of you than the last. And what makes it so difficult to break is that it genuinely feels good. Being understood feels good. Being listened to feels good. Having someone care about the details of your life feels good. That feeling is real, but the intention behind it may not be. This is where you have to make a hard separation. Sion, the feeling of connection is not proof of safety. Repeat that. The feeling of connection is not proof of safety. And you can feel deeply understood by someone who is quietly building a case against you. You can feel close to someone who is cataloging everything you say. Emotional warmth and strategic intent are not mutually exclusive. The most dangerous people in your life are going to feel like some of the closest. So what does this do to you long term? Beyond the obvious betrayal, beyond the moment they use what you gave them, there's a slower damage happening. Every time this pattern plays out, you lose trust, not just in them, in yourself. You start questioning your judgment. You pull back from everyone. You become either completely closed off or you repeat the same mistake with the next person who shows you attention. Neither is power. Closed off and paranoid is not strength. That's just a wound wearing armor. Yet what you actually need is something more precise. Not walls, filters, not silence. Calculated speech, not distrust of everyone. Clarity about who has earned what. And that's the shift. Most men respond to betrayal by trying to feel less. Trust no one. Share nothing. Stay cold. That's a reaction, not a strategy, because if you walk into every room with visible walls up, people can see that too. They learn to work around it. They find other angles. Real psychological protection doesn't look like a locked door. It looks like an open room with nothing valuable inside. You seem accessible. You seem engaged. But when they leave, they realize they learned nothing they can use. That's the level we're building toward. You now understand what they're extracting and why. Your plans, your insecurities, your network, your reactions. Now, all of it given freely, all of it weaponizable. In part 3, we go into the exact mechanics of how to stop it, how to engage without revealing, how to answer without answering, and how to make yourself completely unreadable without ever seeming guarded, because the goal isn't to disappear. The goal is to move through the world with zero leverage against you. And that skill, once you have it, changes everything. Most men think protection means saying less, so they go quiet. They become vague. They dodge questions with obvious deflection. And then they wonder why people still figure them out. Here's why. Silence is readable. Obvious deflection is readable. Sudden guardedness after you've already been open, that's the most readable thing of all. You didn't protect yourself. You just announced that you're hiding something. This real protection is not about what you withhold. It's about what you replace it with. This is the principle of calculated opacity. It doesn't mean you shut down. It means you control the signal. You stay in the conversation. You seem present. You ask questions. You respond. You laugh at the right moments. But the information leaving your mouth is carefully selected, deliberately vague, and strategically useless to anyone trying to build a map of you. You're not a locked room. You're an empty one that looks furnished. Let's get specific, because this only works if you understand exactly how to execute it. The first skill is called the vague answer. Someone asks about your plans, your moves, what you're working on. And most men either overshare because they're excited and want validation, or they shut down completely and say, "I don't want to talk about it." Both are mistakes. Oversharing gives them the map. Shutting down tells them the map exists and that you're protecting it. The vague answer does neither. "I've got some things in motion. Still figuring out the details." Early stages, nothing worth talking about yet. Clean, confident, completely unremarkable. They got an answer. They just didn't get information. And here's the subtle power in that. They can't push back on a non-answer without looking intrusive. So they move on. And you've given up nothing. The second skill is redirection through genuine curiosity. This is the one most people miss because it requires actual social intelligence. And instead of deflecting in a way that feels cold, you redirect by showing interest in them. They ask something you don't want to answer. You give a brief, vague response and immediately follow with a real question about them. Not a fake question, not obvious misdirection, a question you're actually curious about, or at least one that sounds like it. Honestly, still early days for me. But what about you? How's that thing you mentioned last week playing out? Now they're talking. You're listening. You seem engaged and warm, and you just moved the spotlight without them noticing you moved it. Stop. This is important. The reason this works is because most people love talking about themselves more than they love learning about you. They think they're in a balanced conversation, but if you're doing this right, and they've talked for 70% of the time and walked away feeling like you really connected, what they actually walked away with is nothing. What you walked away with is everything they just volunteered. Now you understand the dynamic. Now you're the one holding the map. The third skill is controlled emotional display. Remember pressure mapping from part 2. They test you by mentioning things close to you and watching your reaction. This is where most men bleed information without saying a single word. Their body tightens. Their voice changes. They get quiet or they get loud. The reaction confirms the location of the wound. You have to learn to receive those tests without flinching, not by being emotionally dead. That's visible too, by having a prepared neutral response. But when something lands close, something that would normally trigger you, you train yourself to pause, breathe once internally, and respond from a flat, calm place. Yeah, that's a thing. Could be. Doesn't really affect me. Interesting perspective. No heat, no over-explanation, no defensiveness. Defensiveness is a confession. It tells them the attack landed. It tells them to come back to that spot. Neutrality tells them there's nothing there. They move on. They look elsewhere. You just made yourself untrackable. The fourth skill is opinion concealment. This one is subtle, but it matters enormously. Your opinions, why, especially strong ones, are identity markers. They tell people what you value, what you'll defend, what you can be baited with. The man who knows your opinions knows how to provoke you, knows how to manufacture disagreement, knows how to make you emotional in situations where emotion costs you. So you stop giving opinions freely, not on everything. That would be strange, but on anything with stakes, politics, people in your circle, your judgment of situations still in play, you stay neutral on the surface. I see both sides. Hard to say without knowing all the details. Could go either way. Boring answers, unquotable answers, answers that give someone nothing to work with. And privately, behind that neutral face, your actual view is yours alone, informing your decisions, guiding your moves, never handed to someone who could use it against you. Now let's talk about the one thing that makes all four of these skills actually work: consistency. Because here's what breaks most men who try this. They're disciplined for a week, then they get comfortable again, or they get excited about something, or they meet someone new who makes them feel safe fast, and they open up, and the cycle starts again. Calculated opacity is not a technique you turn on when you feel threatened. It's a default operating mode. You are always in it, not with paranoia, with calm awareness. You don't share plans until they're already done or already in motion far enough that sharing costs you nothing. You don't reveal insecurities to people who haven't earned years of demonstrated loyalty. You don't give your network map to anyone who hasn't proven they have no interest in using it. This is not coldness. This is precision. Here's what changes when you actually live this way. People start to feel something different around you. They can't name it exactly, but they sense that you're not fully readable, that there's more beneath the surface than you're showing, and that creates something powerful: intrigue. The man who shares everything is understood quickly and then taken for granted. The man who shares almost nothing, but does it warmly, calmly, confidently, stays interesting, stays slightly out of reach, keeps people curious and chasing. You become the one they're trying to figure out. And while they're busy trying to read you, you've already read them completely. That's the power flip. You came into this video on the receiving end of extraction. By now, you should feel something shifting, because in part 4, we close this out with the final layer: what to do with the information you're now collecting. How to identify who's running this pattern on you right now, and the identity shift that makes all of this permanent. Not just a strategy you use, a way of moving through the world that never lets anyone hold leverage over you again. You've made it here, and that already tells you something. Most men would have checked out by now, scrolled past, moved on to something easier, but you stayed because something in this hit close. Maybe you're thinking about a specific person, a specific conversation, a specific moment where you gave too much and paid for it later. Good. Hold that, because this part is where everything locks in. Let's start with identification, because strategy without target is just theory. You need to know who in your life right now is running the extraction pattern on you, not assumption, not paranoia. Observation. Here are the specific signals. The first signal is asymmetric disclosure. You know a lot about your situation. They know very little about theirs. Sit down and actually audit this. Think about someone close to you right now. How much do they know about your plans, your past, your fears, your finances, your relationships? Now flip it. How much do you actually know about theirs? Not surface details, real information, the kind that would give you leverage if you needed it. If the answer is almost nothing, that imbalance is not an accident. People who extract deliberately keep themselves opaque while keeping you open. They understand the power dynamic. They've just been playing it quietly while you thought it was an equal exchange. The second signal is reward and escalation. Think back to how the sharing started. Every time you opened up, something good happened. They responded warmly. They validated you. They matched your energy. They made you feel seen. That warmth was the reward, and it trained you to keep going. This is basic conditioning. The same mechanism used to train behavior in any system. You were rewarded for disclosure, so you disclosed more. If you trace back the pattern of any relationship where you ended up overexposed, you'll find this at the beginning. A consistent reward every time you gave something real. It felt like chemistry. It felt like connection. It was a feedback loop being managed. The third signal is strategic timing of questions. Pay attention to when they ask. Not just what they ask, when. The best extractors don't probe when you're sharp and guarded. They wait. They wait until you're relaxed. Not until you've had a drink. Until you just got good news and your guard is down. Until you just got bad news and you need to vent. Emotional states open people, and someone who consistently shows up with questions exactly when you're most open is not operating by coincidence. They've learned your patterns. They know when the door's unlocked, and they time their arrival perfectly. Now, once you've identified the pattern, what do you actually do? You don't explode. You don't confront. You don't pull back dramatically and signal that you figured them out. That's amateur. That burns your advantage the moment you have it. What you do is quietly reroute. You stay in the relationship on the surface. You remain warm, present, engaged. But underneath, you shut the pipeline. No new real information goes out. But you start answering in the vague one-liners from part 3. You redirect. You conceal opinions. You stay neutral on anything with stakes. And you watch. Because the moment the information stops flowing, something interesting happens. Their behavior changes. The warmth may cool slightly. The questions may get more pointed. They may push harder than before. They may create a situation designed to emotionally open you back up. And that reaction, that shift in behavior when the supply cuts off, is your final confirmation. Because someone who was genuinely there for connection doesn't become distant the moment you stop being an open book. Only someone who is there for extraction does. Stop. Let that land. The test of real connection is what happens when you give less. Real people stay. Real people don't need your information to want to be around you. The ones running the pattern will reveal themselves the moment you stop feeding it. You don't have to accuse anyone. You don't have to make a scene. Just close the pipeline and watch who leaves. Now let's talk about what you do with the information you've been quietly collecting. Because calculated opacity is not just defense, it's positioning. While you've been running these skills, vague answers, redirection, emotional neutrality, opinion concealment, you've also been listening. And people who think they're extracting from you tend to be less careful about what they reveal themselves. They're focused on pulling, not on protecting. So while they've been building a map of you that leads nowhere, you've been building a real map of them, their insecurities. Their pressure points, their network, their actual intentions versus their stated ones. You didn't go looking for it aggressively. You just stayed quiet and paid attention while they talked. That information sits with you, private, unused unless necessary. You don't weaponize it casually. You don't use it to manipulate or harm, but you hold it. Because knowing someone completely while they know almost nothing real about you, that is the most significant power differential that can exist between two people. They're playing chess with a blindfold on. You can see the entire board. This is where the real identity shift happens, and it's not about becoming cold. It's not about becoming suspicious of everyone you meet. It's not about moving through life like you're in enemy territory at all times. It's about something more precise than that. It's about understanding that information is currency, and like any currency, you don't hand it to strangers. You don't leave it on the table. You don't spend it before you know the value of what you're getting in return. You hold it. You invest it carefully. You give it only where it generates real return, real trust, real loyalty, real demonstrated safety over time. Not because someone made you feel good in week 2. Not because the conversation flowed easily. Not because they seemed genuinely interested. Time and consistency are the only credentials that matter. Everything else is a feeling. And feelings can be manufactured. Here's the final thing I want to leave you with. The men who never get used, never get exposed, or never get outmaneuvered. They don't walk around angry or paranoid. They walk around calm because they're not afraid of what someone might do with information. They haven't given anyone information worth using. Their plans are protected by silence until execution makes protection irrelevant. Their insecurities are known only to themselves, processed privately, never performed publicly. Their network is theirs, not a social map handed to anyone who showed curiosity. And their opinions, their real views, their real judgments, are the engine running quietly under everything they do. Invisible, powerful, untouchable. That's the man you're building toward. Not louder, not harder, not more aggressive, just completely unreadable, moving like a ghost through every room, warm enough to seem open, and disciplined enough to reveal nothing real, aware enough to see exactly what everyone else is doing while they think they're watching you. You came into this video with your map in other people's hands. You leave with it back in yours. And if this hit the way it was supposed to hit, share it with one man who needs to hear it. Not because it's content, because it's protection. Subscribe if you want more of this. Real psychological strategy, no motivation, no fluff, just clarity and control. This is the last time you move through the world exposed. From here, you move like you know something they don't, because now you do.